Hey dreamers, this is Anisha Jennings, a fellow immigrant and an entrepreneur. From being an engineer in India to building my tech business in the US, I've lived the journey you're on. Welcome to Your American Dream podcast, where we turn immigrant challenges into superpowers. Are you feeling out of place, struggling with a job hunt, or simply missing home? I've been there, and I'm here to guide you through it. In each episode, we'll dive into real stories, practical advice, and mindset that will help you write your unique success story. From navigating cultural differences to building a purposeful life, I've got you covered. So if you're ready to turn your immigrant experience into your greatest strength, let's dive in. Your American dream starts now. Welcome to Your American Dream. I'm Anisha Jennings, and today I'm so excited to welcome Heidy De La Cruz, a podcaster, speaker, and podcast launch coach. Heidy is the host of the two-time award-winning podcast, The American Dream in the Eyes of Immigrants, where she amplifies immigrant voices and stories. She teaches podcasting and digital marketing, shares her journey managing PTSD, and helps Latina women and busy moms launch their podcasts in 6 weeks or less using her voice method. She also hosts the Podcasting for Latina CEOs podcast, where she supports women in building online businesses through podcasting. Welcome, Heidy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me today. Such an honor and pleasure to be here.
My pleasure. It is so amazing that, we both have the similar podcast names, and it's just amazing to see the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your journey on how you started and, how the podcasting came into being.
The American Dream in the Eyes of Immigrants was started 4 years ago, which is crazy to even say. And really, the idea of it came from my parents' immigration story. I'm a child of immigrants, so I was born in the United States. Growing up, hearing them talk about, life back home, or friends and family just talking about, how when they got here and things like that, I would always like be in awe of their stories. Like I noticed that I love people's stories. Like even when I'm reading books, I'm always like reading memoirs and just learning about other people. And before I started my podcast, like years before I started my podcast, I was actually a fan of podcasts myself. So I was listening, but they were always interview based podcasts, like, like this, just people sharing their stories. And I always say, like, God really put it in my heart in 2019 to start a podcast. And it was going to be like, just interviewing ordinary people, talking about the good things that God is doing in their lives and just seeing the impact that they're making with people around them. But in 2019, I was actually doing my master's program in school. So I didn't have the extra bandwidth or time to start a podcast. So fast forward to 2022, I was on maternity leave. My son was about 3 months old. I was getting ready to head back into work. And I was like, I still have this nudge in my heart to start a podcast. Started researching how to start. And I literally just started with the things that I had at home. So like my husband's work headphones, my iPad. I started recording directly on Anchor at the time. And yeah, because I had no idea how long I was going to do this for. And so I started interviewing friends and family about their immigration story. And yeah, and then from there, once I published it and put it online, people started pitching themselves to be a guest, or they started recommending other like immigrants that they knew in their lives who they thought would be good guests. And yeah, it's just taken off since then.
Beautiful. I love it. So tell us a little bit about your early life. You were born here, but you're a child of immigrants.
Yeah.
So how did that, what was your upbringing like, and how did the immigrant culture, so to say, get into you?
Yeah, so born in New York. However, my parents left New York when I was 3 months old. So I was really raised in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And in Grand Rapids, from my friend group, I was the only Dominican, but I did have a very diverse friend group, because I did go to a very diverse school, which I absolutely loved. And so I was just like, staying true to our culture and then also trying to be American enough for my friends and just navigating the two. And then just like trying to explain to my father why certain things are done, like for example, I wasn't allowed to spend over the night at anybody's house. And I remember my best friend growing up, she used to get very upset. She's like, "Why doesn't your dad let you spend?" And I'm like, "We just don't do that in the Dominican Republic."
Yeah.
And then I remember in high school, we actually had they had a lock-in, so, like, you to spend the night at the school, but, they
Uh,
had, like, games and you could go into the pool and all that. So the very first one, my stepmom chaperoned to make sure that it was like, okay, that you're telling us the truth pretty much. So she was the chaperone for the lock, and so just, like, things like that, like, they them getting used to, like, the American culture and, like, the activities that, you do at school and just trying to navigate, like, translating a lot for my parents. So I remember, like, with my dad, since he's a mechanic, like, having to go to, like, AutoZone and, Advanced Auto Parks or, like, the junkyards with him to, like, help him translate and ask for help if needed and things like that, or, like, going to doctor's appointments with him and stuff. So just navigating both cultures was very interesting. Like at home, we spoke Spanish, we ate Dominican cuisine, we watched Spanish television. So, like, back in the day, like cable was a big deal, guys. And so was like
mhm.
satellite cables. And then I remember they always made sure that they had the Spanish package so we could watch the channels from the Dominican Republic back home to stay up to date with the news and all of that. So it was very much, just navigating both cultures, both and yeah.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about, identity. Did you ever have this conflict that am I Dominican or am I American? And how did you embrace that?
Yeah. So I actually grew up very proud to be Dominican. So I did not shy away from being Dominican. And I don't know if it's because there weren't that many Dominicans growing up. I mean, now if you go to Grand Rapids, there is a big Dominican community as, years have gone on and families and settle there and they're like, yeah, as families settle there and they like tell other people, but growing up, like, I think that's why I was very, very proud to say I was from the Dominican Republic. I was not afraid to, like, speak Spanish or anything like that. I actually like telling people or, like, teaching them, like, "Oh, we do certain things this way or that way," and, like, teaching about that. But going to the Dominican Republic and telling people there that I was born in the United States, then they would tell me that, like, "Oh, you're American, you're not Dominican." Or they would always compliment my Spanish. It's like, "Oh, you speak so well for a gringa," which is literally the Spanish word for American. And so they would be surprised that I could speak Spanish, and I'm like, "You guys, like, my parents immigrated, so, like, I literally grew up speaking Spanish first." And, like, I vividly remember, like, starting kindergarten and not knowing English, and luckily, I believe the teacher's aide was the one who spoke Spanish and she would translate for me because I didn't know. So, like, here in the United States, I very, very much embraced my culture. Again, when I went home, it was Spanish. We spoke Spanish. Like, you were just like in the Dominican Republic if you were at my house. And then outside of the house, obviously you're in the United States. But like going back to visit, that's when people were like, "Oh no, you're not Dominican, you are American." And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yes, that does happen, and it's interesting. But that's what we talk about as like when you leave your country and you immigrate, you don't really have to be either or. You can be
Yeah.
both. You can be like embrace and assimilate and just contribute basically. So,
Yeah.
what impact have you seen from sharing these immigrant stories in such an honest way?
Yes, I have learned that the immigration experience or the human experience is the same regardless of which country people come from. So, my podcast focuses on immigrants from all over the world. So, like, not just a particular country. And I remember very vividly, I interviewed actually this one of my guests was a child of immigrants as well, like me, but her parents were also from India. And as she was explaining her upbringing, I'm like, girl, how did we live the same life? And we're from two completely different parts of the world. And
Yes.
it was just like, our parents, with that culture thing, like trying to embrace a Dominican culture and like trying to stay true to like that, but then also trying to navigate and like us trying to be like more American for our friends, quote unquote. and just having like strict parents and things like that. So I'm just like learning, listening to all these stories, whether they're children of immigrants or they're immigrants themselves. I realized that like the immigration experience, the emotional side of things, the emotional toll that immigrating actually takes on a person is all the same regardless of which country they come from. I always love asking my guests like what first cultural shocks they experience,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like that's not talked about a lot,
Yes.
because the adapting, oh my gosh, like that's so different than my
Oh,
country,
yeah.
type of thing. So I love getting into that, and sometimes unfortunately they are bad memories.
Yes.
I just had a guest who immigrated from Korea when he was 14. And so he said that one of the first cultural shocks was him and his friend were walking back home from 7-Eleven, and these people like rolled down their windows and like were making, like Chinese, like they thought that they were Chinese. So like they were making like these Chinese noises, like making fun of them. And so that was, yeah, he was like, that was very shocking to me. And, obviously he felt very sad and everything. So there are unfortunate, cultural shocks like that that's certain people experience, but overall, I'm like with this podcast listening to so many stories from so many people from all over the world, I've come to realize we are more alike than what we are different, because
Yes.
again, there's even like certain things that I can relate to my guests with, and I was like, and I'm not even the one who immigrated. It was my
Yes.
parents, so yeah.
Yes, for sure. And that is so true. It's the same thing for me too. It's like the guests I have on my show, it just feels like we all belong to one family
Yeah.
where we're experiencing everything similar, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about storytelling, right? Like storytelling is a big part of your work and your life. So tell us, how powerful is storytelling?
Oh my goodness. Yes. So one of the things that, well, I say that the main mission of the podcast is to change the narrative of immigration to a more compassionate and empathetic approach. I say like a Jesus approach, because my faith really does run everything that I do. And that was one of the main things that I said very clearly from the jump, is like, I am not getting into the politics of immigration, because that's already loud. It's already messy. There's already enough of that. What I really
Mhm.
want to do is just share immigrant stories. And like I'll ask them like, what events led you to move to the United States, but I'm not here to ask like, oh, did you came undocumented, did you
Right.
came the
Right.
quote unquote right way type of thing. No, I just want just that curiosity of like, what brought you to the United States, because there's so many different reasons. Some
Yes.
people come for school and they want to, go to school here, get their degree, and then usually they want to go back home. But then something happens. They either meet their wife or husband and they end up getting married and staying, or they get a job and that job petitions for them and sponsors them. So I feel like the power of storytelling is really how we can get into like the root cause of why certain things happen a certain way, or why certain things happen a certain way. And that's how you can really get into like the process of everything, right? How long did it take you to get your residency or your citizenship and things like that? And I've had guests who openly shared that they came undocumented, or they were children, so their parents brought them, and they were able to get their citizenship. Like that
Right.
that is like the American dream. There is pathways for people to be able to stay and have a better life in this country. So I really do think that the power of storytelling is just sharing people's truths,
Exactly.
whether that is right or wrong. To me, it's just like this is their truth. Like I can't judge them for sharing their truth and how things played out in their lives. So I think that's really the biggest power, what's really powerful with storytelling and sharing by stories. And we can see where the gaps are. Like,
Yes.
okay, they were able to do that. Why were they able to do that? Is that something that we need to address? Is that something that needs to change? Quote unquote. So that's really the power in storytelling.
I love that. I love that. So you started your podcast, right? So what immigration challenges does what misconceptions about immigration does your podcast help challenge?
A lot, actually, especially when I'm interviewing immigration attorneys themselves. I always like asking that question, like, "Oh, what is one misconception that you hear a
Yes.
lot?" And actually, one of the common answers is that one of the biggest misconception that people think about immigration is that coming to the United States is easy.
Yes.
Yeah. So
for
it's
sure.
like, one, it's not easy at all. It is a privilege. It is a
It is a
privilege to be able
privilege.
to come to the United States because it is very expensive. It is time consuming.
Oh yeah.
And unfortunately, not every immigration attorney is out there to help people. There are a lot of fraud that happens
Oh,
in
yes.
regards to immigration, unfortunately. So I've had guests share about those stories as well. And I've had immigration attorneys also share that like they had a challenging time with their immigration process. And that's what drew them to be an immigration attorney themselves, which to me is so fascinating because one, they were immigrants themselves. So they went to law school studying in a language that wasn't their main language. They passed the LSAT, they passed law school, and they passed the bar. And then now they're helping people who were in their shoes. And I'm just like, you guys are incredible. Like, I really, really give people their flowers when it comes to that because law school is not easy. I mean, I try to get in. So I will say that. It's not easy. So I'm just so fascinated by that. But yeah, very common misconception is that it's easy to come to the United States when it's not at all.
It's not. Yes, you're right. You're right. And the other misconception is that if you marry a citizen, you become a citizen.
My gosh, yeah, that
Because
is
I used to
no.
get that. Well, you married a citizen. How come you're not a citizen? It doesn't work like that.
It does
You have a
not
lot
work
of
that way.
paperwork.
Yeah, oh my, but a lot of paperwork, a lot of time because like even when you do get your green card, you can't automatically apply for citizenship. Like people don't know that you
Exactly.
have to wait at least 5 years and there's
Yes.
more paperwork, there's more fees.
Yes.
It's exhausting.
It is. It is. So yes, that's another one. But thank you for
Mhm.
sharing. So
Yeah.
you help people launch podcasts in 6 weeks. Tell us a
Yes.
little more about it. What is your voice method and how is it effective?
Yeah, so about a year and a half into my own podcasting journey, being in the online space and just engaging with other aspiring podcasters or podcasters themselves, one thing that I kept seeing a lot was that people get overwhelmed in the beginning of launching their podcast because one of the misconceptions about podcasting is that, oh, you press record and then you publish it, and that's it. And you and I both know that is not the
That is
case.
not the case yet.
So I kept seeing online about like that overwhelming feeling and I was like as a person who really likes helping people, I'm like, "Hey, like I started this podcast again at that time it was like a year and a half ago. I was like I remember how I felt, how I wish I had someone that I could go to ask questions. So I was like I can help people start their podcast and I've been having a lot of fun with my podcast meeting people from all over the world. My podcast had brought so many opportunities to me, like speaking and writing and stuff. So I'm like, I want to help people. So at first, I started helping with just anyone who wanted to start a podcast. So, like, my first clients were actually men. But then I was like, I think I'd rather work with women and help women start their podcast because the podcast industry is really dominated by men right now. So I'm
Yes.
like, we need more women voices in the podcast industry. So the voice method came about really just reverse engineering how I started my podcast. So it really did take me about 6 weeks to start from when I started researching to like, okay, this is when I'm going to launch. It took about 6 weeks. And so I was like, okay, let me work literally backwards. Okay, launch. Okay, what would I do first, second, third, and things like that. So the voice method is an acronym. So V stands for vision. So then I help clients like, okay, what is your goals with the podcast? What is the vision with your podcast? Do you have a mission? What is it that you want to do with the podcast? And then we go into O, which is to outline. So once we get down to the goals, we outline the episodes. We outline also the format. Are you going to do interviews? Are you going to do solo? Are you going to do a mix? Do you want to have a co-host with you? So then we go into those details. And then I is to implement. So then that's where we get started. Okay, if you need recording equipment, get your equipment. And then also setting up like a recording schedule, publishing schedule, and all that. C is for connect or community. So how are you going
Mhm.
to connect with your audience? How are you going to connect with your community? So that's really like the marketing plan, right, of the podcast. And then E is for execute. So by week 6, sorry, we are executing your podcast. You have your trailer recorded. You have your first 3 episodes recorded and ready to go. So execute. Yeah. So by week 6, you are a podcaster. You have your plan all set in place, and you are ready to take this podcast on as long as need be. So that is the voice method. So I say 6 weeks or less because if they take the course, it's self-paced, so you can do it in faster than 6 weeks. Or if the client wants to do the workbook, same thing. They can do it as fast or as slow as they want to. Now, if they do decide to do like one-on-one coaching with me, I do try to stick to that 6-week plan because, there's a lot of behind the scenes and a lot of back end stuff that happens with podcasting. So I want to make sure that they're not overwhelmed, that they have clarity, and that we take it one step at a time because I really am about helping people set up their podcast successfully, which I mean is like a way that they can stay consistent with it. Because a lot of people think that when you start a podcast, you have to do weekly episodes. And it's like, you don't have to. You can do bi-weekly, you can do seasons, you can do monthly, like whatever works for your schedule that you'll stay consistent is really what I help clients with.
For sure. For sure. That's amazing. So how can people connect with you and get in touch if they want to launch their podcast?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is my name, Heidy, Heidy, period, De La Cruz. So DELACRUZ 13. Or you can go to my website, HeidyDelacruz.com, and all the information on the different ways that you can work with me is on there. So again, there's the course, there's one-on-one coaching with me, or there is the workbook, which is literally a PDF form. I believe it's like almost 40 pages. It sounds like a lot, but it literally just like break things down step by step so it's not overwhelming. And those are the different ways.
Amazing. So when people are wanting to start their podcast, right, what are some of the fears that you have, like common fears that you see people have? And you already told us how you help them with it, but what are some of the common fears?
Oh my goodness. One of the things is that like they feel like they have a lot to say, but they feel like no one's going to listen. Like, oh, who's going to listen to my podcast? Which is crazy to me because there's so many YouTube channels out there and there's so many blogs out there. So it's like, if people are reading and watching, why would they not listen to your podcast? And I like to say that if you have that desire in your heart to start a podcast, it's there for a reason. And that is because there is a message or there's a story inside of you that someone else needs to listen and hear. So I feel like it would be a disservice if you do not start the podcast when you have that desire in your heart because someone out there needs it. And I can't stress enough, like even with my immigration podcast, like how many people, even from outside of the United States, have reached out to me and said, like, even though I didn't immigrate to the United States, like I still feel seen and validated and heard because, again, the immigration experience is the same regardless of which country you're going to or which country you're coming from. So if that desire is in your heart, I say please listen to it because someone out there needs your message or your story, and there is an audience for literally everything and anything. I promise you.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. You also talk about turning your episodes into SEO blog posts. Tell us a little bit about why that strategy is so important.
Oh my goodness. I just published also an episode on this. So repurposing your podcast episodes. Blogging is my favorite way because they're both evergreen. So I feel like with blogging and podcast episodes, they're like this long form content that you can create once a week or bi-weekly, and you can make more content from that long form content and use it multiple times. So with blogging, what I like about it is just the SEO optimization and the discoverability that can happen either on Pinterest if you want to market your blog post on there, or just on Google. So for example, when people Google my name or they're wanting to start a podcast, like either my episodes or my blog posts come up when it comes, to podcasting. Just utilizing SEO is so rich because that's literally how you find anything online, whether you're on social media or Google or anything like that. SEO optimization is how anything is found online. And now with AI, I've actually had a few people find my podcast through AI. So AI recommended my podcast to them because it was exactly what they were looking for. And that's what my podcast was about. And I'm just like, this is amazing. So SEO is king. So I'm just really passionate about that because I feel like people stress a lot about social media, and social media, like the videos and the posts, they only last like 24 to 48 hours. But with SEO and long form content, like people can find your episodes or your blog posts years down the line. So
For
yeah,
sure.
I'm really passionate about that.
Amazing. So, where do you suggest posting these blog posts? Is there a specific platform you use? Where do you recommend somebody starting?
I definitely recommend having your own website. So if you already have a website and you want to start a podcast, you can definitely include like a page specifically for your podcast. Or if you don't have a website and you want to start a podcast, then have a website for your podcast. And the reason why I say in your own podcast is because you own that. Like that, once you buy the domain, that is yours and it's not borrowed land. If you want to repurpose on another platform like Medium or Substack or Beehive, but make sure that your content is in something that you own, which is a website. So that's where I said definitely start on your own website.
Beautiful. So, also, how can podcasters grow their audience? Because sometimes, with the podcast, you feel like you're putting out episodes there, but your
Yes.
audience is not really growing, right?
Yeah.
So, without feeling overwhelmed, how can podcasters grow their audience?
Yeah. So I love, again, SEO, utilizing SEO for your podcast. So making sure that keywords that people are searching for are in your episode titles and are in your show notes. Now, let's say, for example, if you are using your podcast as a business funnel, then you definitely want to make sure that your main keyword is the first word of your podcast overall name, right? And so SEO is really what's going to help your podcast episodes or your podcast show up when people are searching on these listening platforms. Believe it or not, people do search for like, self-help or self-development or business podcasts in these listening platforms. You can
Mhm.
always utilize, social media. I really like Threads right now because when people are asking podcast questions and I answer on their thread, it's not just them that see it. Other people can see those responses as well. And so there's threads always all the time like, hey, drop your link to your podcast or what is your podcast about? And then when I share like what my podcast is and what it's about, like people are very intrigued
Mm,
and they go and listen. So definitely social media is a great way that you can grow your audience and just talking about it. So if you can go to like networking events and talk about your podcast, you are literally getting in front of your audience. And that is one of the greatest ways that I've been able to grow my podcast as well. Going to networking events, going to business conferences, and just getting out there, even virtual networking events or virtual workshops or things like that. I love going because there's usually an opportunity to be able to network. If you're able to join like any online like memberships, you're able to talk about your podcast there. And they usually give like a day or two for you to promote whatever your businesses or services, promote your podcast. If you have a new episode
yeah,
out, you can take full advantage of that and just promote it there. So there's so many different ways that you can grow your audience.
for sure. For sure. Thank you for sharing that. So, you've also shared your experience managing PTSD. How has that shaped your work and purpose?
Oh my goodness. So going to therapy and learning more about PTSD and how our bodies, like our brain, our minds, and our bodies, how we process information and emotions has really also helped me be more empathetic and compassionate with my guests. And knowing that when you're talking about traumatic events or experiences, which sometimes my guests do talk about on the show, I understand now that I have to give them time to like process in real time. So, or that space, right, to process in real time. So, a lot of my guests have cried, and I have cried in my show because of those memories and emotions coming up. So, experiencing that for myself gives me the space to be able to, or gives me the ability to create that space for my guests as well. And I vividly remember I had one guest, he cried, talking about his experience moving. And I think it was just like 5 or 10 minutes that we just sat there in silence. And I was just like, please take your time. Like, I didn't want to rush him. I didn't like that because that would have been a disservice to him. I'm like, and he kept apologizing. I'm like, please do not apologize. Just
Right.
process in real time what's going on and everything. So, going through that myself, I understand what my guests are going through. And then again, be able to provide that safe space for them. And then yes, those parts do get edited out just for, the respect of the guests.
Absolutely.
But Yeah, learning more about the body, how we process information, how we store trauma has really, really helped me be able also to connect with my audience in a deeper level.
Yes, yes, for sure. And also, when you're telling your story, sometimes it's like you wouldn't have thought, like, you don't think about certain things that you have done or how you, like, how you are, where you're at. But when
Yeah.
you look back and you're sharing your story, it does, like, trigger a lot of good and bad at the same time.
Yes.
So, for
Mhm,
sure, that
100%.
is.
I can think of, like, I had a guess. Her episode was she ended up pulling her episode, it wasn't published, but she was undocumented, and when you are undocumented and the DACA came up, they had to reapply after, I think, every 2 years, and then you had to pay a fee, and so she literally, in real time, was calculating how much money she had already spent
Oh, wow.
reapplying, and she was like, I never really thought about that, like, how much money I have spent on, like, in real time. So, yeah, like, when you're reflecting back, you
Yes.
sometimes don't really realize, like, what you actually went through until you actually talk about it and share it in real time, yeah.
Exactly. And like you said, you never know who it's going to help, who is listening to your story and
Yes.
who it's going to help. So share your story. So
Yes, please.
so what advice would you give someone who is afraid to use their voice?
That is a really good question. I would say you had to dig deep in to see where that fear is coming from. Like what is actually coming up when you think about sharing your story and your voice.
Hmm.
For example, I grew up listening a lot. There's a saying that they would tell women or girls is calladita te ves más bonita, which literally, oh my gosh, literally translates to you look prettier with your mouth closed. So really like silencing women's voices or girls' voices and kind of and making them feel like their voice doesn't matter. And so doing the therapy work and pretty much digging up these limiting beliefs or these messages that I received growing up really helped me understand why I wasn't able to speak up in certain situations or
Mm,
why I wasn't able to really fully give my opinion in certain things. And so if someone is afraid of using their voice and speaking up, I feel like they will have to like either journal or, seek out help from a professional to get to the root cause of what it is that's coming up and where is that attached so
yes.
then they be able to step out and fully use their voice, share their story because it is scary. It is
It is.
scary to share your story.
It
You're
is.
being vulnerable, you are putting yourself out there, but I truly believe that in being vulnerable and sharing your truth, no one can use that against you because you own it. But that's also how we connect with other people. We
Exactly.
connect in that vulnerability. We don't connect in that surface level, type of talk. We connect when we talk about the deep
The
hard
real stuff.
stuff.
Yes.
Yes, the real stuff. So yes.
For sure. For sure. So what does the American dream mean to you today?
Oh, thank you for that question because I ask that question all the time. Okay. So the American dream for me is I literally am living it because I truly, truly feel that my purpose in this life is to share these stories. And the reason why I say that is because once I am done with an interview or connecting with someone, I have like this natural high and like I go run to my husband and I always tell like, "Oh my gosh, that was so good." And like
Yes.
end up telling him like a little snippet of their story. And there's just certain people that I'm just like in shock of like the
Right.
things that they went through. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, you have lived such an incredible life. And I'm just like so in awe and so amazed. My American dream right now is I am living it. I have a good career, healthy family, married, I have the house and what quote unquote used to be the American dream. But now it's really just like connecting with people, sharing their stories, and helping other women own their voice through podcasting. And I am truly, truly at peace and where I am right now in life and my purpose. And I cannot wait to just continue connecting with people and continue to share more stories and just learn more history and learn more about different cultures.
Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, being here, sharing your story. and your lovely advice.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. As we close this inspiring conversation with Heidi, one truth stands out. Your voice has the power to change lives. Whether it's through storytelling, podcasting, or simply sharing your truth, impact begins when you choose to speak. And if you're ready to build your own platform and need support behind the scenes, my agency is here to help. From creating strategic, high converting websites to providing team and operational support as your business grows, we help you build the structure behind your voice because your message deserves to be heard and supported. This is Anisha Jennings reminding you that your American dream isn't just about opportunity, it is about impact. Until next time.
Thank you for tuning into Your American Dream. I hope this episode left you feeling inspired and ready to take on the world. Remember when I first landed in the US, lost and overwhelmed? Well, look at us now. We're building our dreams together. Your story matters, and I'm so honored to be a part of it. If you enjoyed our chat today, please spread the love. Rate, review, and share. Let's grow this amazing community of dreamers together. Want more? Catch my daily doses of inspiration on my Instagram @JenningsTechCorner. Also check out the show notes for more ways to connect. Remember, your accent is the voice of your ambition. Your background is your superpower. Let's dream big and achieve bigger. Until then, this is Anisha cheering you every step of the way.